Hello and welcome to the Minimum Competence episode for Friday, September 6th, 2024. I'm your host for today, Andrew Leahy, a tax and technology attorney from New Jersey. On today's episode, we have Trump's appeal of the $5 million Carroll verdict, the Troutman, Pepper, and Locke merger, Biden's pro-union infrastructure order, and NVIDIA's AI patent theft lawsuit. Let's remember, the weekend has arrived at last, and read today's legal news. On this day in legal history, September 6, 1961, the first official non-aligned movement, or NAM conference, concluded in Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Leaders from 25 countries, including India's Nehru, Egypt's Nasser, and Yugoslavia's Tito, gathered to affirm their commitment to remaining independent of the two major Cold War blocs, the United States and the Soviet Union. The conference marked a significant moment in international diplomacy as it provided a platform for newly independent nations to advocate for peaceful coexistence, self-determination, and resistance to colonialism. The non-aligned movement had its origins in the 1955 Bandung Conference in Indonesia, where Asian and African leaders first came together to discuss mutual interests. By 1961, the movement solidified its principles, emphasizing the importance of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in internal affairs. At the Belgrade Conference, these ideals were codified in what would become known as the 10 Principles of Bandung, which called for disarmament and the end of imperialism. The closing of this inaugural summit was a milestone in the broader process of decolonialization and the emergence of a new voice in global geopolitics. It established NAM as a key player in advocating for a multipolar world order, allowing smaller nations to navigate the pressures of Cold War rivalries without being drawn into the conflict. The legacy of the 1961 conference endures, with NAM continuing to influence international relations today, with a membership that has since grown to over 100 countries. Donald Trump's legal team plans to appeal a $5 million jury verdict that found him liable for sexually assaulting and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. The appeal will be heard by the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan with a panel of 3 judges appointed by Democratic presidents. This appeal challenges a civil verdict from May of 2023, which stems from Carroll's accusation that Trump assaulted her in a Manhattan department store in the mid-1990s. Trump also contested his 2022 post on Truth Social, where he called Carroll's claim a hoax. The original jury awarded Carroll $2.02 million for sexual assault and $2.98 million for defamation. A separate January verdict ordered Trump to pay $83.3 million for further defaming Carroll in 2019. Trump disputes the trial's fairness, claiming that evidence of 2 additional women's testimonies and a controversial Access Hollywood video were wrongly admitted. Trump also argues that the court ignored political motives behind Carroll's lawsuit. This appeal runs alongside various other legal challenges Trump is currently facing. Partners at Troutman, Pepper, and Locke have approved a merger, forming a new firm called Troutman, Pepper, Locke, set to launch on January 1st of 2025. The combined firm will have over 1,600 lawyers across 35 offices in the U.S. and Europe, with a reported $1.5 billion in combined revenue. This merger strengthens Troutman's presence in Texas and boosts Locke's attorney headcount, which had been declining. Key leaders from both firms will continue in leadership roles. The merger enhances their complementary practice areas in energy, financial services, and pharmaceuticals, though some partner departures have raised concerns about potential client conflicts. President Joe Biden is set to issue an executive order directing federal agencies to prioritize companies that collaborate with unions and provide strong wages and benefits when distributing funds from key infrastructure and green energy laws. The move applies to laws like the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act and sets job quality standards for federal spending. The order builds on previous policies requiring federal contractors to pay at least $15 per hour and use project labor agreements, now making such labor standards mandatory for private employers seeking federal grants. Companies with union-friendly practices, apprenticeship programs, and benefits like childcare and paid leave will be favored in federal funding decisions. Additionally, the directive pushes agencies to incentivize higher wages for manufacturing grants, expanding beyond traditional Davis-Bacon Act wage requirements for construction jobs. A task force will be created to oversee policy implementation. Zackets Inc. has filed a lawsuit accusing NVIDIA and Microsoft of stealing its patented semiconductor technology, which offloads AI computing tasks to a data processing unit, or DPU. Zackets claims this technology significantly contributed to NVIDIA's rise as a leading AI chip maker. The lawsuit, filed in Texas, also accuses NVIDIA and Microsoft of violating antitrust laws by avoiding direct patent licensing talks through a third-party intermediary, RPX Corp. Zackets alleges this formed a buyer's cartel to avoid paying fair value for its intellectual property. NVIDIA's market value surged to $3 trillion, and Zackets is seeking damages potentially in the billions. The company also seeks an injunction against NVIDIA's AI products and Microsoft's use of them. NVIDIA and Microsoft have declined to comment. With that, I thank you so much for listening to Minimum Competence, your daily news podcast for lawyers. If you're looking for more than Minimum Competence, links to further reading on all the topics touched on today are in the show notes. And reviews go a long way towards helping new listeners to find our show. If you have a moment, leave a rating or review on your podcast player. We'd sure appreciate it. And if you know someone that might be interested in a story we cover, consider sending them the episode. But remember, nothing here should be construed as legal advice because it is certainly not that. Minimum Competence is available at minimumcomp.com and wherever you get your finely crafted podcasts. If you haven't checked out the website in a while, give it a look. There are complete transcripts and resources for each episode and its corresponding segments, as well as an opportunity to receive new episodes in email, newsletter, form. We'll see you back here on Monday, and until then, note, we are continuing our aim to close the week of shows with a musical piece to feature. That will make these Friday episodes seem especially long. We hope you'll stick it out and enjoy the featured piece, but if music, and specifically classical music, isn't your bag, we get it. Our mouth sounds unrelated to the week's closing music ends here. This week's closing theme is by Tchaikovsky. This week's closing theme is Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's iconic 1812 Overture, which premiered on this day, September 6th, in 1882 in Moscow. Tchaikovsky, one of Russia's most beloved composers, is known for his deeply emotional and powerful compositions, and the 1812 Overture is no exception. Written to commemorate Russia's defense against Napoleon's invading army in 1812, the piece tells a dramatic story through music, blending themes of struggle, victory, and national pride. Famous for its booming cannon fire and triumphant melodies, the 1812 Overture incorporates elements of Russian folk tunes and even the French national anthem, symbolizing the clash between the two nations. The work culminates in a grand, celebratory finale, with the Russian national anthem resounding, signaling ultimate victory. Though Tchaikovsky himself expressed mixed feelings about the piece, considering it more of a celebratory commission than a personal masterpiece, the 1812 Overture has become a symbol of musical grandeur. Often performed during patriotic events, it remains one of the most widely recognized pieces in classical music. Its thrilling combination of orchestral power and theatricality makes it the perfect conclusion to this week. Without further ado, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, Opus 49. Enjoy.